Welcome to Saturday's first video. First news story is from Eritrea Sudan relations. Sudanese foreign minister a few hours ago talked to a news outlet about stopping a Sudanese delegation from visiting Eritrea. What happened? What is Sudanese government's position? We know that Eritrea was planning to organize a conference in Asmara about East Sudan internal issues. But a delegation from East Sudan comprising tribal and political leaders were stopped by Sudanese border guards on Sudan-Eritrea border on Thursday. What is Sudanese government's position? Did Eritrea intimate Sudan about this conference? The foreign minister shared details about the conference, which was due to be held in Asmara. It has been cancelled now, I think. Second news story is about Tigrayans in detention at IDP camps in Samra, Afar. It seems that these Tigrayans are going to return to their places of origin. Just a few hours ago, UNOCHA shared some information about these thousands of Tigrayans in Afar. Logistical preparations are underway and these Tigrayans could return to their places of origin. It has been a demand of Tigray regional government for months that these Tigrayans are in detention, they must be released. Could this step lead to start of peace process, start of peace talks? Thirdly, another news story about peace talks. EU's Annette Weber, who is EU's special envoy to the Horn of Africa, who visited Tigray 4 days ago. Before that, she held meetings in Addis Ababa with Demake Mekonnen. She talked to Deutsche Welle a few hours ago and she talked about the obstacles to the start of peace talks. What did she say? We have details for you. And lastly, viewers, last news story is about another Ethiopian government's claim. A few days ago, around a week ago, Ethiopian government claimed that its forces killed 3 top Al-Shabaab commanders in Al-Shabaab's attempt to enter Ethiopia. Fuad Shankole and 2 others were named by Ethiopian government. A few hours ago, Ethiopian state media, Ethiopian National Defense Force, they doubled down on this claim and they said 24 Al-Shabaab commanders, some of their top men have been killed and the government has shared their names, details as well, while Al-Shabaab is denying. We have some details for you. Firstly, viewers, Sudan is resisting Eritrean influence now, Eritrean interference now. It's very clear. On Thursday, a delegation of more than 100 political figures and tribal elders from eastern Sudan was not allowed to enter Eritrea from Kassala. This delegation was due to attend a meeting being organized in Asmara by Eritrean government about the issues of eastern Sudan, which shares border with Eritrea. The delegation consisted of main leaders of Bija tribe, Popular Front for Liberation and Justice, Eastern Front, and Bani Amir tribe elders, politicians, part of this delegation. But at Lafa border crossing in Kassala, Sudanese border guards stopped this delegation. The delegation was allowed for a few minutes to enter Eritrea to greet Eritrean officials there. Then it was told to return to Sudanese side of the border. So it was not allowed to enter Eritrea for taking part in a conference. which was being organized in Asmara. Now, Sudanese foreign minister has spoken with some news outlets. What is Sudan's position? Did Eritrea intimate Sudan about this conference? Ali Al-Sadiq is Sudan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. He talked to Sudan Tribune and he said that Eritrean embassy in Sudan wrote a letter to Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sudan. And in that letter, Eritrean embassy asked Sudanese government to nominate representatives from Sudan to take part in a conference being organized in Asmara, Eritrean capital. But Sudanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs did not respond to this letter of Eritrean embassy in Sudan, which means that the Sudanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs rejected this invitation by Eritrean embassy in Sudan. And the Foreign Minister of Sudan says that in that letter, there was no mention that 100-member delegation from Eastern Sudan had been invited as well to take part in the conference. So that is why Sudanese government stopped this delegation of more than 100 tribal leaders and politicians to cross the border into Eritrea. This move will definitely lead to some escalation of tensions between Eritrea and Sudan. Abdul Fattah al-Burhan is resisting Isaias Afwerki's influence in Eastern Sudan, and Isaias Afwerki does have influence in Eastern Sudan. What will happen next? Will there be some normalization? Will Abdul Fattah al-Burhan agree to sending a delegation, agree to letting this East Sudan delegation visit Asmara? That remains to be seen. Talks are underway reportedly. So coming days crucial for Sudan-Eritrea relations. If Abdul Fattah al-Burhan agrees to send this delegation, we could see normalization of ties. Otherwise, this escalation, though just diplomatic escalation, it could lead to its impact on the ground as well in Eastern Sudan. Secondly, viewers, Tigray regional government for months have been calling for the release of thousands of Tigrayans who are at IDP camps in Afar, Samra, Afar. There are two IDP camps in Afar, mainly Samra and Agatina. Ethiopian Human Rights Commission a few days ago visited these IDP camps in Afar, and the commission called upon the government to release these Tigrayans, to let them go to their places of origin. The commission spoke about dire living conditions at the camps too. And Tigray government has been saying that these IDPs, Tigrayans, are in detention. They have been forcibly shifted from Abala, and some of them are migrants who returned from Saudi Arabia. On their return, they were put into these detention camps. So Tigray government has been threatening as well that there must be release of these Tigrayans, otherwise action would be taken. Now it seems that these Tigrayans could return to their places of origin. UNOCHA, United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Ethiopia, a few hours ago released a situation report about humanitarian situation in Ethiopia. UNOCHA says that preparations are underway for the return of these Tigrayans who are at IDP camps in Samra. Two IDP camps in Samra. There are around 6,600 IDPs, and mostly they are Tigrayans. Secondly, Agatina IDP camp. There are 740 IDPs, most of them are Tigrayans. UNOCHA says that logistics are being prepared, logistical preparations are being made, and these IDPs were profiled, information was collected about their places of origin, and now transport and other logistical preparations are being made for the return of these IDPs to Abala and to Tigray. Some of them are from Tigray, but majority of them is from Abala. So in coming days, we could see the start of the return of these thousands of Tigrayans to Abala and to Tigray. Question is, their rehabilitation will also take time. Abala was partially destroyed. We have shared pictures, videos when Tigray Defense Force withdrew from Abala. The town was partially destroyed. How will these Tigrayans going to return to Abala? How will they make both ends meet? What about their livelihoods? How will they survive? There are several questions, but the return of these Tigrayans to Abala could pave the way for start of talks. It could be a confidence building measure, because Tigray government has been demanding the release. Tigray government says they are in detention, though aid agencies have access to these IDPs and they have been providing them with food and other basic necessities. So a very positive development that at least these Tigrayans will be able to live freely in Abala, and some of them will return to Tigray as well. Thirdly, viewers, Annette Weber, who is EU's special envoy for the Horn of Africa, who visited Tigray a few days ago, she talked to DWTV, not Tigray's DWTV, international DWTV, and she talked about the obstacles to peace process, obstacles to the start of talks to resolve Tigray conflict. Annette Weber has spoken with both the parties. She visited Addis Ababa, and there she met with Demeke Mekonnen, Deputy Prime Minister. She was briefed by Ridwan Hussein, Minister of Justice of Ethiopia. Then she and other diplomats and envoys traveled to Tigray. There they met with Debretsion Gebremichael. So she has consulted both the parties. Now, what is the obstacle to the start of peace talks? Annette Weber says that both the sides mistrust each other. There is lack of trust between Tigray regional government and Ethiopian federal government, and both sides are demanding very strong security guarantees. Security guarantees, or you can say assurances, security or others. So both the sides want some assurances before the start of these talks. She has not elaborated upon what she said, assurances, which type of assurances. But Tigray's position is clear. Tigray wants resumption of basic services, telecom, banking, electricity. Tigray wants the release of these Tigrayans, like those in Afar, and withdrawal of forces from parts of Tigray. On the other hand, Ethiopian government wants some assurances as well. What are the assurances demanded by Ethiopian government? Because Ethiopian government says it is ready to talk without any preconditions. 2 days ago, Ridwan said that there would be resumption of basic services in Tigray after enabling conditions. These enabling conditions open to interpretation are the assurances sought by Ethiopian federal government. I think Ethiopian federal government's main concern is that it wants to ensure that Tigray will not launch a new military offensive. Ethiopian government has a leverage now, which it gained in the battlefield when Tigray had to retreat from Amhara. People say, Sajid, why do you say Tigray suffered losses militarily in Afar, Amhara? It retreated then last year. That is how I conclude after covering this war since its start. Tigray had to retreat from Amhara Afar. People say since US was against Tigray's advance to Addis Ababa, that is why Tigray forces withdrew from Amhara Afar. I do not agree with it. Had Tigray Defense Force been in a position to reach Addis Ababa, it would have definitely marched to Addis Ababa. It did not because it could not. Because there was deployment of modern combat drones, TV-2s, wing-longs, and it became difficult for Tigray Defense Force to advance. These drones were not in operation in the earlier part of this war last year. TB2s were introduced into the battle zone a little late, I think in September, October. And immediately after that, we saw TDF suffering losses. So, my understanding is that TDF had to suffer losses. TDF suffered losses, it had to retreat. So, Ethiopian government has a leverage, which it gained in the battlefield. It does not want to lose this leverage at the table. It wants to go into talks with a leverage. That is why it will not agree to all the demands of Tigray regional government, like withdrawal of all forces, like resumption of all services. There could be some partial resumption. So the two sides lack trust basically. Tigray is of this opinion that Ethiopian government is not sincere. It is planning another invasion of Tigray. Ethiopian government is of the opinion that Tigray could launch another military offensive. So if aid fuel is freely sent to Tigray, this aid fuel will be used by Tigray Defense Force for a new military offensive. This lack of trust must be handled. How to do it? You need to make small decisions, small confidence building measures. You need to sit, you need to talk directly. Then gradually, there could be building of the trust within two parties. Lastly, viewers, last news story is about Ethiopian government's claim about killing Al-Shabaab fighters, Al-Shabaab commanders rather. Almost a week ago, Ethiopian government claimed that its forces had killed 3 top Al-Shabaab commanders, Fuad Shankole, with head money of $5 million US, Abdul Aziz, spokesperson of Al-Shabaab, and another commander. 3 were killed according to Ethiopian government, Ethiopian National Defense Force, Ethiopian state media. Fawad and Abdul Aziz, they were interviewed by a radio station. Audio interviews, it was a radio station interview. And they said that they were alive, they had not been killed. Though they have not been seen in public, no videos. We have not seen any videos of Fawad and Abdul Aziz. And yesterday, Ethiopian government doubled down on its earlier claim. Ethiopian government is not stepping back from its claim that top Al-Shabaab commanders have been killed. In fact, the government says that 24 Al-Shabaab top men have been killed in Ethiopian government's operation. And yesterday, Ethiopian National Defense Force, Ethiopian state media shared the names of these 24 Al-Shabaab top men. And the list includes Fuad Shankole, Abdul Aziz, spokesperson, Ali Muhammad Hassan, Deputy of Security, Abu Musa, Deputy spokesperson. So Ethiopian government is maintaining this position that its forces have killed not just 3 but 24 Al-Shabaab commanders in Al-Shabaab's recent attempt to infiltrate Ethiopian territories. No evidence though. Ethiopian government has not shared any evidence so far, no pictures, no videos, no other evidence, just names, just claims. Al-Shabaab hasn't shared any evidence either, just audio interviews. I think if these persons are alive, they can easily make a video and they can say that they are alive. But we have not seen any video of Fuad Shankole, Abdulaziz and other top men of Al-Shabaab claimed to have been killed by Ethiopian government forces. And secondly, viewers, some of these Al-Shabaab fighters who were killed, they were found carrying ID cards. ID cards issued with Gode region stamp on it. You can see the stamp on the ID cards. These are ID cards of Al-Shabaab fighters. Al-Shabaab fighters who were killed in Ethiopia. These ID cards were recovered from them. Now a campaign is underway by some opposition parties in the Somali region of Ethiopia. They say that Gode authorities of Ethiopia issued these ID cards, and Mustafa Umar, president office, is involved in the issuance of these ID cards. That some elements in the president office and president office itself, Mustafa Umar himself, they are behind the issuance of these ID cards. Let's not name anyone. A few days ago, some news sources, 2 news sources, claimed that Mustafa Umar had close ties with Al-Shabaab and he was backing, he was supporting his family, he was supporting Al-Shabaab fighters. And now based on these ID cards, a new campaign is underway that these ID cards were issued at the orders of Somali's president office to Al-Shabaab fighters. My question, viewers, is can we say that these ID cards are not fake? Debate about their issuance will only start if we know that the ID cards are not fake. These ID cards could be fake. So investigation should be conducted. Are these ID cards issued to Al-Shabaab fighters fake or genuine? If they're not fake, then those who issued the ID cards must be pointed out and held accountable. Thank you.